Hold on, I'll tell you how much she is. $1,000. You can donate it. You want my water bottle before you spill it? Let's not waste your time, especially putting after you sell it. No, you can't waste your time. Okay, I'm gonna take it away then. Get going to sell it so she can play for bed. Your time is up, Xander.
The store! Other way!
How's it going, everybody? Can everybody hear me okay? Just giving a few minutes here. I had a little bit of trouble getting logged in for some reason. It was something was hung up on the app. I don't know what was going on. Then all of a sudden, poof, there it was, and we are back and rolling. So I'm just giving a few guys, a few people join in here. Yeah, Jim, I appreciate you getting some of the syrup. That's one of the big things that, you look at all these guys and all these places where you can buy maple syrup, and it doesn't, everybody says maple syrup's maple syrup, and I don't agree with that. Um, I like the smoky flavor. We boil it a little bit longer, not as hard and as fast as what some guys do, but also just leaving little bits of air gaps or whatnot around the edge of the pan. Some of that smoky flavor kind of gets into the syrup. And one thing about carbohydrates, whether it be bread or sugar or anything, it absorbs whatever is in the room or whatever flavor or scent. So if you have smoke in the room and you've got pure sugar, with the sap, that flavor will get absorbed. So guys that use like reverse osmosis and closed systems and boiling, super efficient. And when they use the reverse osmosis, it takes a lot of time away from the boiling, and you don't get that long boil and the ability to soak in some of that smoke flavor. So that's kind of what we like, and it definitely tasty. Well, a few people. I don't know. It's getting nice out. It's hard to sit inside and watch a computer. Guys are probably still out fishing. Well, kind of give you a lowdown on what I know, what I've been seeing. I will say that this has probably been one of the craziest years as far as the run goes. It was, I think it was really quick. And what I mean by that is typically you see a lot of, you get a lot of fish on the down run, more, females and whatnot. But I think with the crappy weather, the winds, and, just the ability to get out was so restricted because of weather that I think we probably missed some of the good days, even though the fish were moving through and most anglers weren't able to get out. It was a little different, but I think a lot of fish are back out into the lakes. We've been doing pretty good on Poigan. There's quite a few fish out on Butamore, Sunset, Oakwood, up in some shallow rocks when the sun's shining, and quite a few fish back out in the Winnebago already. I'm really surprised with how many fish have made it back. A lot of, obviously there's those lake fish that spawn, stay out on the reefs on the east shore, down in the southern corner, even up by Neenah, Menasha, Garlic. Those fish are kind of residents, I think, all year long. And that bite is actually picking up pretty good. Water, depending on obviously the wind, try to find a little bit dirtier water, a little something with a little bit of stain to it, so the fish aren't as spooked, and you can get them up on top of the rocks right now. And some different methods to try. Obviously, throwing plastics is a favorite. Now is a great time to start slip bobbering. Getting some leeches, and don't be afraid to use minnows out on the lake right now too. Some of the bigger, if you can find some chubs or some sucker minnows, something a little bit bigger, and throwing those out on slip bobbers, or even just jigs and minnows, or just long lining over the tops of the rocks and the reefs, can be a great tactic this time of the year. I learned how to do that from the guys in Minnesota and Dakotas when they came here and fished a tournament quite a few years back, and they schooled me pretty good. So, but I say right about this time, as soon as those fish start coming back out into the main lake, I always bring a few minnows with me. And the other day when we were out on Poigan, throwing on some rock piles, just some jigs, we were throwing some crawlers, and I just happened to throw a minnow on just to kind of see, and I got smacked right away. So don't be afraid to try some minnows out on the lake. It definitely is something that I think gets overlooked a lot. Everybody thinks that they got to use crawlers and leeches, and they're great, but not a whole lot of crawlers and leeches swimming around out in the middle of Lake Winnebago. So again, I think kind of that whole match the hatch type of a thing, and throw what they're used to eating out there, and it can be beneficial. So something to try. As far as kind of what's happening in the river, a lot of white bassinet are moving their way up. Going through Oshkosh, 41 Bridge has been pretty busy. Like I say, again, out on Sunset and Oakwood, depending on which way the wind's blowing. A lot of nice, good eater size fish out on both the points. And then up in Winneconne, seems to be kind of hit and miss as far as what's happening there. But again, it's been so windy that it's so hard to tell. The fishing, the current's getting backed up. Not a whole lot of people out there fishing, and today I had was up Winneconne, and I just watched some people for a while too, and just really wasn't much happening. Seems like most of the action right now is out in the lakes or down around Oshkosh. We'll start getting some white bass now here in Fremont, up in the Wolf, over the next few days. We just need the weather to get warm and stay warm, and these 30-degree mornings and that really slow things down. And it's long overdue to get into some of that. Let's see. Oh, Ray says it's South Muskie opener weekend. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about muskie fishing, Ray. Other action that's happening. The channels are still putting out a lot of nice panfish, bluegills, and perch. But the crappies are starting to move in now. And if you're looking to get some of those pancakes with bones, now's a good time to get out there and get on some of the crappies. Like I say, the white bass are just starting to come into the river. I was marking a few schools, not a whole lot of schools the other day. So we'll give it another day or two here. And I noticed that looking at some of the trees, the lilac bushes and stuff like that are starting to turn green. And, probably within a week or two here, we're going to see some flowers. And, that's always a telltale sign is when the lilacs bloom, the white bass are ready to feed. And I know a lot of guys are getting excited about that. And it's pretty fun. Never done it. You should definitely try it. And don't let anybody tell you that the fish aren't good to eat because they're pretty delicious. So Ray, where are you guys heading this weekend for the opener? I've got some breading for you too if you want to try that on some of the cheeks. I heard musky cheeks can be pretty good. Otherwise, just take the tail meat and that's usually pretty good too. Usually get some good fillets on that. Yeah, I don't get excited about muskie, the opening weekends and stuff like that. I used to back in the day, but now it's pretty much, start fishing August, September, more of that fall fishing. If I get a bug to go throw some baits around Big Green or Little Green or, someplace like that in the middle of summer, that's one thing, but I don't get excited about the muskie opener anymore. I really like, kind of miss the tradition of going up north and fishing, on the lakes and trying to, get some post-spawn walleyes up Eagle River, Minocqua area. And if I'd ever do anything, that's pretty much where I think I would go. Anything over 50 is getting a catch and cook vid this year. I've got the flay knives, buddy, and I'll help you clean it. I think we could have a feast. The boys up in Canada would appreciate that too. Yeah, I think we got a whole bunch of it. We could probably throw every flavor and seasoning at a fish like that. um, so as far as kind of what's happening up on the river, the last couple days actually, there's still a lot of milkers coming down. Obviously, if you're looking to get the kids up or see some of the sturgeon along the side of the river, don't wait much longer. They're up there pretty good right now, and they'll probably, I guess, probably through the weekend, but probably not much after that. The white bass, I say, they're just starting to come into the river. A lot of milkers coming back down, and not much for spawned out females anymore. It's really surprising to see how quickly those fish skated through the system. And unless there's a bunch of them still up there, up in the trees eating, but everybody I've been talking to and everything that I've seen, even the last time fishing up there, all we got were a lot of the, smaller males, 13 to 15s. Every once in a while you get us, 16, 17 incher. And I think we had maybe 2 or 3 spawned out females that were in that 18, 19 inch range, but just not much in the river. It was just kind of a weird year. Let's see. Tournaments, I think a couple tournaments this weekend coming up. The guys have the Bagel Walleye Club. I think Wood Eyes tournament is coming up here soon, and a couple other just small bar tournaments. And this last weekend on AIM, finally seen a pretty good weight on Sunday. I think a little over 20 pounds, I think, is what won it. And from what I gathered, it was everything was out in Winnebago for the most part. Some guys on the 41 bridge, some guys in the river in Oshkosh. A couple fish, caught on Butymore, but as far as what I know and what I've seen, as far as numbers go and bigger fish, most of those fish are all out on Winnebago already. And you just got to find those active ones. And right now, look for anything, any warm water. Just a couple degree temperature change is all you really need, or get up on those shallow rocks. There has been a lot of fish down by Stony and kind of along that shoreline. And then, like I say, over on the east shore, a lot of guys have been doing pretty good over there already. So, looking to get out, I'm going to be throwing some hair jigs. Using, if you want to use your forward facing, now's the time to really learn how to use it, because it's going to be pretty beneficial and really help you out when you get over these shallow areas. Throwing hair jigs, you get on top of the rock piles if you got some wind, and you can start throwing some slip bobbers out. Again, either leeches, crawlers, minnows, and then don't be afraid to either pull some slow death or any just long lining leaders with either leech or, minnows and stuff like that, just working the edges of the reefs. If you got wind, get up on tops of the reefs. And otherwise, throwing big plastics is a really, great tactic this time of the year. Just because the water is cold doesn't mean that the fish aren't gonna, eat. And rip it as hard as you can. Don't fish them slow. You'll trigger those reaction bites. And if the fish aren't hungry, if they are hungry, we always say this, right? If they're hungry, they're gonna eat anything. But if they're not hungry, you got to make them bite, and that's when ripping some plastics or even some blade baits or something that's going to make noise or make some flashes, and you can fish pretty fast. Will trigger some of those reaction bites and get some of those bigger fish to eat. Just try everything. There's no right or wrong, I think, this time of the year, because they're kind of in that goofy stage. But it is post spawn. They're looking for food. They're hungry, and you can usually entice those bigger fish to bite with bigger baits. Trolling, Salmo hornets, nice and slow this time of the year can be good. Up in the upper lakes, I like using, like the hit sticks or the Yozuri pin minnows, just the long stick baits that have, not as much of that real fast vibration, more just a nice slow wobble in the water, and anything that makes a little bit of noise. And get those baits up shallow. Don't be afraid to get into that 2-3 feet of water, especially on sunny days, with the rocks warming up. Those fish kind of move up into those shoreline areas, and you can catch fish all day long in that shallow stuff. The bait's going to be up there because it's warmer, and if the bait's there, the walleyes are going to be there. So just another thing to check, another thing to try, and you usually stumble upon a pod, and there'll be 15, 20 fish around an area, and you can capitalize on some nice fish pretty quick. We were talking earlier about the crappies moving into the channels, kind of throughout the entire system. Poigan, Butamore, all the channels out there. Guys are getting fish off the docks. Out on Winnebago, all the West Shore channels I know are pretty much, I not say loaded, but there's quite a few fish moving in. And then the harbors over on the East Shore too. Don't forget, Stockbridge, High Cliff, all those spots will start holding fish too. And then after that, just start looking for the weeds just outside the bays or outside the spawning areas, and they'll school up in really big numbers. And that's when you can really, typically have a lot of fun to them. And as far as fishing the crappies, let's see. As far as fishing the crappies, throwing tube jigs, slip bobbers with minnows. I love long lining or using the long rods, cane poles, and just fishing along the docks. I think that's one of the funnest things to do with 14, 16 foot cane poles, just kind of dipping along the edges. One thing you got to remember, and this has kind of been tried and true for a lot of years, is everything this time of the year is looking for warm water. So when the sun comes up in the morning, anything that sun is going to beat on, typically your southern shorelines, northern shorelines, the sun's going to be beating on the north shoreline, and you're going to find rocks along shorelines. You're going to find docks in these channels, and there's a few things you want to look for. Aluminum is going to heat up really quick, but it doesn't retain the heat. So early in the mornings, those aluminum dock posts are one of the first things you kind of want to start to target. And you got to get your baits. That's what's nice about a cane poles. You can literally drop a bait right on top of the dock posts. Get those baits, slip bobber, right next to the dock post. Let them sit there. And if you don't get bit within 5-10 seconds, lift it up, drop it to the next one, and just keep working those dock posts. And most of the time, those fish, they're nosed right up to it. It's almost, I always say, it's kind of like that, those aliens on Independence Day, where they're all kind of going into their little pods, and that's exactly what these crappies do. They just stack up and all face those dock posts, and if anything swims off of them, they'll attack it. And the reason I think they do that, they get so close to those dock posts, is because that heat is radiating off, and there's just kind of absorbing it in, and then as the day progresses, those rocky shorelines, anywhere there's bigger chunk rock or something that's dark, that's going to warm up. You're going to check there, and then as the day even progresses further and you get into the late afternoon and towards evening, all those wooden dock posts is where you want to be. Now those aluminum ones are going to start cooling off because the sun isn't beating on them anymore, and aluminum cools down really quick, whereas the wood dock posts are going to retain all that heat that it absorbed all day long, and those crappies will sit along those dock posts well in towards evening. And then typically right before dark, they're going to start going out over the centers of the channels or right down the middle, chasing, bait around. So just a few little tricks there for guys looking to get into some crappies. Coot says water is still very low for the channels. Yeah, it is low, but there's some channels that you can get into and get in some of the deeper channels. Some of the the really good channels, the water is just too low to really get in, get a bigger boat into. But there's a couple that a guy can get a big boat into. We'll keep those ones secret though. I'll let people figure it out for themselves. Do you think spot lock in the channels spooks the fish? I don't know, Joe. That's typically how I roll when I get into an area. For the most part, though, I got my motor on like 2, unless it's super windy out, and with those long cane poles, when I'm crappie fishing at least, I'm just slowly, working my boat up the channels and dipping along each one of the dock posts. And I never really stop, and when I'm doing that, I just keep motoring down, and then we'll turn back around and come back through if there were a couple of really good docks. You give it a chance to load up, or for those fish to come back after you catch one or two. It just gives those fish a chance to kind of calm down a little bit so you can get back on them. Now, as far as bluegills go, we spot lock quite often, and I don't think it spooks them at all, because if you're sitting over the middle of the channel and you're casting to the edges, or in front of you or behind you, I don't think that motor spinning the little bit that it does is really spooking anything. I think throwing anchors in the bottom and stirring up the bottom and making noise with chains and ropes and everything else, I think that's way more detrimental than spot lock. But again, all depends, right? If you're in super shallow water, there's some spots where I have to trim up my motor, raise my pole on my bow mount, and scooch you into some of these super shallow areas, and then I don't even spot lock. I just trim my motor down and drop my bow mount into the mud and use them kind of as power poles because it's so shallow. And those are kind of the areas that you want to look for. We're getting to the point now where that water is getting close to mid 50s, high 50s, where they're not going to be in that super shallow stuff anymore. They're going to start moving, into a little bit of deeper water, and you'll have to, just kind of use your locators and use your eyes. Nice thing when you're bluegill fishing too is you'll see those fish swimming around in really big schools right now. So when you get up into these channels, they're pretty easy to spot. Let's see, out here, the crappies are starting to get into some spawning areas, up in some bulrushes. I'd say probably sitting in that 8 to 10 feet of water right now in all the small lakes. And those things will be spawning here back in the bays and, in these cuts or where any of the bulrushes are, probably in the next week or so. And then after that, you get to start getting the bluegills pre-spawn, and I just kind of leave the bluegills in that alone right now until after they're done. Fun to go out and catch and release, but on these small lakes, it's pretty important to let them do their thing. I know Lake Association and the DNR been out stocking here this last week in all the lakes, putting in a bunch of crappies, perch, and bluegills. So it's nice to see that the money that gets donated and raised all year long is going back into the systems. And a lot of fatheads too. I think they just put 200 fatheads in one, or 200 pounds of fatheads in one of the lakes. So the fish got plenty to eat. Let's see. Weather-wise, I think we got some winds coming this weekend, I thought, and then let's see. We'll just double check. I know tomorrow they're talking rain. Let's see. Saturday and Sunday back up into 58 on Saturday, 68. And then it looks like it stays in the 70s pretty much all week next week. And looking forward to that. Finally, some warm weather, flip-flops, t-shirts, and no more winter gear. Like, so excited to put the winter gear away. Let's see. So right now we've got the stupid northeast wind that looks like it's going to stick around for the next couple days. Every time that northeast, you figure 3 days before it's gone, and so it'll make fishing out on Winnebago a little more challenging, but still be able to get out there. Where are the perch this time of the season, Buck? The perch are going to be, they're going to be coming out of their shallow, their post-spawn shallow areas where they were. Start looking for them. They'll even be back in some of the channels where the water's still kind of warm. But anywhere where they were spawning, so like say Winnebago, you're looking at Asylum Bay. They're going to be out in the middle of the bay, probably in that 5-7 feet of water, kind of cruising around in the weeds, and they can be a little bit tough to find. But when you do find them, they are going to be concentrated pretty thick. And a lot of times when you find the perch, you're going to find, bluegills out over the bigger bluegills anyway, out over those, center part of the bays right now, before they start coming back in to, make their beds. And that's not typically until at least Memorial Weekend. They come in right now shallow, the bluegills do right away, ice out to warm up. They're not there to start spawning or anything like that. They're just there to warm up and, help get their eggs and, everything, warmed up and working and developing and, just preparing for that spawn. And then they'll leave that shallow water, go out a little bit deeper, and then they'll hang out there until the water temps get into, those low 60s. And then the males will start looking for bedding areas and start fanning out their beds once you get into, that mid to high 60 water temperature, and 68 to 72 is when they're typically spawning. So you've got plenty of time yet before that happens. Right now it's just the fish are in the shallow waters just warming up. That's where the bait, all the bugs and everything else goes from warm shallow water and then progresses as everything else gets warmer. So that's really kind of the science behind it all. I had some other questions. Oh, Scott had asked, can you find eyes on reefs on Bago? Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Obviously wind plays a factor. What I like to do, this time of the year right now is look for some dirtier water, something that these fish can hide in. And not only that, how you can hide from them. So the clear water this time of the year is always a bad thing unless it's early in the morning or, towards evening, where they can't see as good. But again, slip bobbers, throwing big plastics, really, working hair jigs, live minnows. You can pretty much do anything you want to right now on those reefs. And it's only going to get better. But especially on warm days, you've got that sun beating on those rocks and again, warming everything up. Do I have any contacts for Lake Erie, walleye, and smallmouth? Yeah, Ron, shoot me a private message, or here, let's see, we'll do this. That's my cell number. You can go ahead and text me, and I'll send you over some information. Joe, yeah, I'd have to agree that next week's going to be the beginning of the run up in the Wolf. It's been pretty good in the Fox and Oshkosh. Some fish over in Amarillo. Excuse me, but Oshkosh has been pretty good the last probably week and a half, 2 weeks. Winneconne will probably be good here these next couple days, and by midweek, I foresee us starting to catch quite a few fish in the river up in the Wolf. Looking forward to that, and I'll keep everybody posted. We'll be doing some live videos and some fishing stuff during the day, right out on the boat. So stay tuned. We're just in the middle of tying flies right now. I tried teaching Xander how to tie them, and he tied like 2 and then gave up on me. I have an order of 200 in for him, but I only still see the same 2 over there. So he's got some work to do. They're too busy in the background right now. I don't know if you can see. The wife and the kids are hooked on, it's Animal Planet. That's what it is. On their Animal Crossing. Sorry. Playing these video games, building houses and fishing and selling stuff, and I don't know. Very productive use of time. I can hear him laughing over my shoulder. So, well, I will leave you guys with that, unless you guys have any other questions. To everybody heading out for opener, don't forget, it is opening weekend this weekend. So if you're heading up to Green Bay, the walleye limits out in the bay go back to 5. All your inland lakes here in Wisconsin are 3 fish limit this year. And just make sure you check each lake before you head out on all the different regulations. Being a new season, everything will be in effect here, and different bag limits, special regulations on your lakes. Just make sure you know everything before you go out. I hope everybody has a great opener, and good luck to everybody fishing the tournaments. And we will catch you guys next week. Hopefully we will be in the boat whooping up on a bunch of white bass. Joe asks, when casting the flies, what size weight do you typically use? So Joe, my theory on this is you have to figure out where the fish are at in the water column. Some days the fish are up high. And then when I say high, I'm talking like 3-4 feet. And by casting out over the deeper centers of the river and ripping them back, figure out or pay attention to when you get bit. Do you get bit, as soon as the sinker hits the bottom, or do you get bit as you're ripping it forward? So if you're getting bit when you're ripping it forward, that tells me that those flies are going to be down near the bottom a little bit more. And then when your sinker hits, that's when they come up. And if you're starting to get bit high, then I'm going to lessen my weight. 1/2 ounce. I'll typically start off with a 1/2 ounce and then go to like a 3/8 or 5/16. I use a lot of 5/16 on the river for jigs and for my weights for casting the fly rigs. But most of the time, these fish like to lay on the bottom, or they're close to the bottom. So if the current is fast, I'm putting a 3/4 ounce bell sinker, and I don't use the pencil weights. I want the bell sinkers, and even casting up into 2 feet of water, 3 feet of water, I will use that heavy sinker to make sure that when I'm ripping that bait or that sinker and the line and the fly rig isn't coming up too high, because I want them to stay down. So it's usually a lot quicker snaps, and just making sure that those flies are sliding along As close to the bottom is what I can get them. It sounds like an overkill, but when we're up and even when the fish are biting really good, um, I'll throw my 3/4 ounce, catch fish, catch fish, catch fish. Getting your doubles and your triples, and then I'll like, all right, we'll just try going to the halves or the 3/8, and um, I don't get as many fish. I've tried it time and time and time again. It really makes a difference having your bait or your flies, stay closer to the bottom with those heavier weights. So um, try it again. There's no right or wrong. I always just kind of tell you guys what works best for me and what I like to do. I know a lot of people like throwing the lightest possible weight they can just to get it down to the bottom. The problem with that is I think that every time you rip it, rather than staying close, you're going up current and you're bringing your baits up so far that the fish, it's just not even in the strike zone anymore. Um, and some other things that we're going to try. You're going to take a look at the Z-Man graph shads. This bait is becoming one of my favorites. One thing I wish they would do is make it about 3/4 of an inch to an inch smaller than what it is right now. This bait has been a really good casting bait so far this spring. And for the white bass, I think they're just going to absolutely go crazy. And the nice thing is that they're designed to be able to pick up on a forward facing. So they show up really good on your graph, but they're very effective. They've got some pretty good colors, and so far the fish that I've been catching have just inhaled them. So something new to check out. It's called the Graph Shad from Z-Man. Just a natural minnow bait, but the way that the line goes through, it actually goes down through the top and ties on to the bottom, so that bait sits perfectly horizontal in the water. Really good deal there. Well, if you guys have any questions, feel free, shoot me a text, shoot me a message on Facebook. But good luck this weekend. Enjoy the opener, and we will catch you guys next week. Have a good weekend.